everyone. Thank you for tuning in to Gloryfall Interactive here on Light Network, a resource for you and your worship team to become better musicians and worship leaders. Today, we will be talking about Come, Now is the Time to Worship by Brian Dirksen. It is in the key of D. We will give you ideas on how to play the song on your instrument and also use it in a time of worship.
I'm using a muted overdriven sound for this song, which is in D. So the first chord would be D, and then a D sus4 chord. So it sounds like this. So I'm playing the bass note of that chord, and then alternating between the whole chord and then just the bass note. So it sounds like it. And then all downstrokes. So it sounds better with a downstroke, especially for that kind of chord. And then to highlight that chord, I just released the muting. So muted, not muted. So if I want certain notes to stick out, I just release the muting. So release your palm. Before going to the chorus, I use arpeggiated chords, and then it sounds like this. E minor, D over F sharp, then a G. It sounds like this.
Starting on verse 1, you play the notes, just let it ring. So playing it whole notes. Going into the chorus parts, you play the chorus parts in 8 notes, just like this. So in doing so, it's the song is composed of only verse and a chorus. So to create dynamics in your playing, you can even play the verse in triplets, just like this. So if you start out in whole notes, then if you return back to the verse part, you can play it like that to create dynamics in your playing. You can even slide onto the octaves. So let's say you're playing a C, you slide to the octave of C. Then you can even imitate what the drummer is doing. So you have to play synchronized to whatever he's doing. So just make sure that whenever you're playing your bass or your bass lines, it must go with what the drummer is doing.
Use layered sounds for this song. Use a piano and a pad, and keep it low for the verse and for the intro, like so. To give it more body with the chorus and the ending parts, use a higher register, like this.
So in this song, we're dealing with 3 primary parts that you should be aware of and ready for as a drummer. The first is in the beginning, kind of before the groove even comes in, and it kind of has a sound of an electronic drum. And whenever you hear loops or electronic kits or samples or things like that, and you don't have it available, whether it be your keyboardist to play it or you're not playing to loops in your church, then try to emulate it the best you can on the drum set. And actually the idea of emulating other sounds that aren't drums is not foreign, because even in Afro-Cuban music, drummers in other countries where you weren't playing with full percussion sections would emulate the sounds of slaps on the congas and open tones as they moved it to drums. So instead of having 3 guys play something, you could have 1. So if you don't have a loop, don't feel like you shouldn't play, because you should probably play something because it was there and it did create an effect. So that would sound something like this. When you listen to the loop, it doesn't sound like it really has bottom end, so probably leave the kick out. If you hear something that sounds like it has bottom end, maybe you could emulate it with a floor tom or with the bass drum. That would be your call. The next part is a straightforward groove that sounds like this. And as the song goes on, or as your church does the song, you might want to do things to develop that, and we'll talk about that in a little while. And towards the end, you get to this part where it dies down, and the bass drum is taking the place of a snare drum, giving the backbeat, and on 2 and 4 for the bass drum, and that sounds like this. Important thing to keep track of there is sometimes drummers, when we don't play as much as we were playing, and we try to become light, we actually lose emphasis of the groove. So even if you're playing light, really keep the groove there. So even if you get light, don't let the tempo slow, don't let the tempo speed up. Keep it consistent. One thing you can do with these grooves that's kind of in the chorus and a lot of places of the song is to try different places to play it. And so you could do stuff like this, and I'll just play kind of with different ostinatos so you can hear them. So in times of corporate worship, it's important to understand where a song is coming from biblically, to be sure that it is sound and something that you want your congregation to be singing. Brian Dirksen says that this song came out of a time when he was feeling beaten at the bottom, at the lowest of lows, and he felt like he couldn't worship. But it's based on Philippians 2, verses 10 and 11 that says, "At the name of Jesus, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess." And what he realized is that worship, you're not a factor in worship. What you've done, what you haven't done, how you're feeling, it doesn't matter. Because God is worthy of our worship. And no matter who you are, what you've done, or what you're going through, it doesn't change the fact that God is still King. He is in control, and He is worthy of your praise.
Just as you are to worship, come. Just as you are before your God, come. One day every tongue will confess you are God. One day every knee will bow. Still the greatest treasure remains for those who gladly choose you now. One day every tongue will confess you are God. One day every knee will bow. Still the greatest treasure remains for those who gladly choose you now. Come, now is the time to worship. Come, now is the time to give your heart. Come.
We hope that you are able to apply the tips and the guidelines we shared with you today. Think that as you practice, don't give up, press on, and continue to improve the skills God has given you. And as you do this, remember that it is not about performance, it is about worship. Make Gloryfall Interactive your resource for worship leading. You can do this by connecting with us through Facebook, facebook.com/Gloryfall. You can request songs, ask us anything, and we will do our best to answer everything you have for us. Thank you for watching Gloryfall Interactive here on Light Network, working with you for excellence in worship.